Good morning and welcome to day 5 of budget deliberations here. And I'm going to start off, Madam City Clerk, with a roll call.
Thank you, Mayor Hagan. Councillor Campbell.
Here.
Councillor Carlson.
Present.
Councillor Croson.
Here.
Councillor Dodick.
Present.
Vice Chair Middleton Hope.
Here.
Councillor Palladino.
Present.
Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Parker.
Here.
And Mayor Hagan.
Aye.
All present. Thank you.
All right. I do have a sponsored resolution from Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel, Economic Development, Lethbridge, Operational Excellence, N43. Be it resolved that the Economic Standing Policy Committee recommend that City Council amend the 2023 to 2026 operating budget to include initiative N43, Economic Development, Lethbridge, Operational Excellence, to provide for an increase in core funding, replacement of the website and digital platform, and additional wages and benefits with funding allocated as follows. From taxation, $51,694 in 2023, and MRSR $57,000. In 2024, taxation $84,261 and MRSR $46,500. 2025 from taxation $106,624 and MRSR $41,500. And 2026 from taxation $129,434 and from MRSR $24,000. Acting Mayor.
Thank you very much. So this is an initiative from Economic Development Lethbridge. The initiative captures the incremental costs of wage and benefit inflation related to both no budget increases in the prior 4 years and unprecedented inflationary pressures in the post-pandemic timeframe. It should be noted that EDL has not requested an inflationary increase to its core funding, recognizing a need to deliver innovation and efficiencies to offset ongoing and expected future cost pressures. The initiative also includes a provision for replacement of the organization's aging website and digital platform to keep up with changes in technology, data security, and user experience expectations. And I would also emphasize that Economic Development Lethbridge is critical to the economic development of the city of Lethbridge. We do have Mr. Lewington in the audience this morning with us, so we can address any questions we might have to him.
All right, Deputy Mayor Parker.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel. I do have a question, just a quick question. The amount of $108,000, what does that equate for inflationary pressures? So if someone says, in the community says, I see you, is that like 6%, 8%, 3% for wages and salary and benefits? What would that equate to?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, through you and to Deputy Mayor Parker. In the second paragraph of the briefing sheet, it notes that 5%, 3%, 2%, and 2% are the annual increases that are associated with those corresponding dollar amounts. So that total of 12% over the next 4 years addresses the 11.7% in inflation we saw over the last 4. So essentially, by the end of this next business plan, we'll be 4 years behind.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you, Mr. Lewington. The 5% that you indicated at the beginning, is that to make up for the last 2 or 3 years that you've held the line on increases?
Correct. So as I indicated, the last 4 years, Alberta CPI has equated to approximately 12%. This 12% over the next 4 years catches us up to the current day. So it won't address and keep pace with the current market, but will essentially be 4 years behind at the end of this business plan.
And not, at least not 8?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
And a question I have is, and thank you for being here, Mr. Lewington, not retroactive, starts now, it's not retroactive pay to that, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Acting Mayor?
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Lewington, what does it look like if we don't approve this?
Yeah, I think that sends an unfortunate message to the staff team who have absorbed 0 increases over the last 4 years and have delivered efficiencies to hold our budget in line. So that would be an unfortunate message. Obviously, there's natural implications for turnover and there's risk there. Is anyone going to quit tomorrow? Probably not, but certainly it becomes an attraction and retention issue, which is an issue this committee has heard all week from a number of different organizations. My position would be no different.
Thank you very much. And then just further from that, looking at this as one piece that we do to support you, as a general overall picture, what can we at the City of Lethbridge be doing better to support economic development in Lethbridge?
That is a gigantic question. and I appreciate it, so thank you for that. I'll draw the committee's attention back to about a year ago when you all spent a half day with us at Tech Connect as a part of the orientation and onboarding process. And so we presented to you a list of two areas, one where council has indirect influence over policy, and another list of things where council has direct influence. And I would suggest that those two lists, creating a business and friendly environment, through a number of different things, whether it be red tape reduction, business friendly sort of regulatory frameworks, a competitive cost environment, those are the kinds of things that this team, this organization can do to promote investment and expansion in our city. And as one of our MLAs is fond of saying, government's job is to bend the river so that the private sector can fish in it. And so how you bend the river and how you help support that industry, how you support that fishing to occur, is effectively all of the tools that you have at your disposal around policy and advocacy.
Just one final question then for me, in follow-up to that. What are some of the biggest obstacles that you see us putting in place that prevent us from doing all the things that we can to bring business investment to our city?
Yeah, so whether it's business retention or expansion, so that's retaining the existing business space that you have and supporting business owners and organizations through, again, challenging inflationary times, or whether it's attracting new incremental investment to the city, maintaining a competitive cost environment is key. Those are sort of table stakes. So making sure that as you complete your deliberations, as you look at the overall budget, understanding where Lethbridge's property taxes in particular land relative to your peers across the province. It's also broader than property taxes, of course, the total cost environment. So that's utilities, that's the cost of doing and maintaining business in this city. Is it competitive with others? That's probably the immediate topic that's relevant to your deliberations this week. And then, of course, the next most important component would be the regulatory environment. Is it business friendly? Is it easy to do business here? Are timelines, relatively quick to get approvals, zoning permits, those kinds of things? And again, I'd encourage this group to consider those benchmarks against, similar jurisdictions. How do we compare? Are we in a competitive position?
Thank you very much.
Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mayor Higgin. Thank you, Mr. Lewington, for being able to come down this morning. First and foremost, I want to thank my colleague, Councillor Palladino, for loaning me glasses. Otherwise, I would have no questions because I can't read a darn thing. So thank you. And I hope my colleagues will forgive me if it seems like I'm referring to a resolution that was already passed yesterday, but we had South Grow in front of us, and we declined our participation. Does economic development still participate with South Grow? Is there a connection there? In the discussions, I've always said we don't really do a lot of economic development. We have an outside group that is the experts in that. Is there still a connection with EDL and South Grow, even if council does not have that connection?
Yeah, so there is a direct connection in that the Regional Economic Development Alliances, or the REDAs, are provided with a seat on the EDL board. So as you're probably aware, there are two REDAs, Alberta Southwest, which is essentially the Lethbridge city boundary west to the Rockies, is one, and then South Grow, of course, being the city itself to the east, basically to Tabor. And so each one of those organizations is provided a seat in rotation every second year. So there is a direct connection to the EDL board to ensure that regional perspective in the work that we do. We are not a member of South Grow as an organization because, of course, typically municipalities are. We are, however, partners with South Grow. So as an example, we just completed an RFP process for a supply chain identification project. That funding flows through South Grow. South Grow was the applicant and is the fiscal agent, but we are very much a partner, and we will be co-delivering that grant and executing it with them. So there's the indirect connection in that we have been partners for a long time in a number of different initiatives, and we work very collaboratively with them as an organization. But from a governance perspective, they are directly tied to our board, but not vice versa.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Acting Mayor?
Just to follow up on what Councillor Carlson asked, what do you see as some of the unintended consequences of us not renewing membership with South Grow?
And fundamentally, I think Southgrow, its membership will likely be concerned to learn that the City of Lethbridge, which is its largest partner, is not going to be an active participant in that alliance. I would imagine that there will be some, not unintended consequences, but I'm sure questions and discussions that will come your way. There's the risk, I guess, that some of the partnerships and collaborations that we currently have in play, we as Economic Development Lethbridge may be perceived as an arm's length entity of the city as also being, withdrawing or not wanting to collaborate or not being part of those discussions. I did catch up on some of the video footage from yesterday late last night when I got home, and I have since reached out to the chair of Southgrow just to reiterate our commitment as an organization to the work that we do with them and to our long-standing partnerships. In my mind, the city's decision is its own to make, and yet the work that we do will require continued execution with Southgrow, that nothing changes for us in that sense. I'm hopeful that Southgrow and as an organization and its board doesn't then decide to do something in response that might preclude us from being involved in some of those projects. But I can't really speak to how they will or won't respond, and I'm sure you will likely hear from them in short order.
Thank you very much.
I see no further questions, so to open debate, Acting Mayor.
Thank you. Focusing on economic development is key to our city's future and its success. Economic development is business investment and attraction, retention and expansion, entrepreneurship, and innovation. And that's everything that Economic Development Lethbridge brings to the city of Lethbridge. This all leads to job creation, and it can lead to our property tax reductions if we're making more money as we invest, attract, and retain our businesses. Economic development pays for our city's services and creates a vibrant community. And with that, I would ask for council's support on this initiative.
And I see no further debate. To take that as your opening and closing. Yep. With that, question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, at this time, I do have a resolution that I'm sponsoring. If Councillor, I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Middleton Hope.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is N44 for the record. Environment Lethbridge, fees for service. What's in your binders has been revised, and so we have. Just pull it up a little bit. It has been revised. So what we're looking at is a one-year allocation of funds for 2023, 42,000 from utility charges and 28,000 from taxation. The other funds have been removed for the time being. And in addition to the motion, directs administration to work with the University of Lethbridge to explore a strategic partnership to advance mutual interests and work of both organizations. This provides one-year bridged funding and requires that both administration and hopefully the university will work together to come to a viable solution. That's the opening. Any questions?
Councillor Carlson?
Thank you. I'm not sure who's chairing. Oh, you're chairing. He's brought it. Thank you. I got lost there for a second.
Well, it was,
Yep,
I was going to sponsor this, but I see his name's on it, so I think he kind of, yeah.
Thank you. Just curious about this. This is a bit over the wall. I don't know that any of us have heard about any of this strategic partnership. We have a current partnership with an organization. Another one is thought about, but what happens if there is none there?
Are you asking me?
Well, you brought it forward.
Well, I'll just
I
go back.
apologize. It was to be Mayor Higgins' motion,
okay.
and I got the names wrong, so that's my
Mr.
fault.
Mayor, through you to yourself.
Sorry, he is to be, Vice Chair was introduced it, it's a resolution. Well, I've had a conversation here, and have mentioned this with the university and a couple of the professors there regarding some collaboration that we could be doing with Environment Lethbridge. And I believe that this would give us the opportunity to, what I was told from the university is to up to 4 times the amount of us putting into Environment Lethbridge and the initiative that they would be able to use those dollars and get grant funding to be able to use the students there and research students to actually give us, I guess, bigger bang for our buck, times it by, 300-400%. So I didn't want to have this right out of the gate because it will need to explore this, and so that's why I came up with the 2023 starting, still have that funding, but have our administration work together with the University of Lethbridge and bring back something. And you know what? It may not be. We may continue forward. So from 2024, 5, and 6, we could do that. And if that's the case, it would be my understanding that we would look at MRSR for those last 3 years and then put it back into the next budget cycle to continue the way it is through taxation and utility charges. So.
Point of clarification, Your Worship. Are you suggesting that for every dollar that we put in, the university is going to contribute through grants 3 or 4 times as many dollars?
This is the conversation that could be had. So for example, speaking with one of the professors, he feels that he could take, if we had $50,000 in return, we could have up to $200,000 or more with research students be able to do some of this work. So, and through grants that they can get through the federal government or provincial government. So.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut in on my colleague, but at the end of the day, if this does not come to fruition, what's the outcome?
We've got an outcome here that we could bring this back after the research is done by our administration, and we can go back to the way that it currently is. So I don't believe there's any loss there. 2023 will still continue as is. If it does not, if they find in their work together with the university, our administration, that we can't come to a fee-for-service that may be more palatable, then we continue on with what we've got.
Thank you. I'll cede back to Councillor Carlson.
And I do have a question on that Councillor Middleton Hope raised, is would it not be more, if the intent is to explore a new partnership, a possible, I've had a conversation, I've heard it might, to keep the funding in place, make it conditional, because if the intent is the initiative's going to continue, the investment is going to continue, I think the question is, are we partnered with the right organization? So I'll ask about the wisdom of removing the funding when I'm hearing, oh, it's going to continue, but we just might get a better return. I'm not sure why the dollars are removed.
And we could do, it could be less, it could be, it just depends on what that comes back. So I would hate to put in the same number going across here that we have in 2023 if it's utility charges and taxation. If there's, after exploring it, we find out it could be less.
And next question I have is are you aware that when our current partnership, we already get nearly a 3-to-1 leverage on the dollars? For every dollar we put in, we see $3. So that's currently already happening. So I'm just wondering why, well, we could and we might, and there's possible.
Again, it's the exploration. Look in, find out what we can do. Can it be better? I'm not saying that it will be, but it's just to be able to explore that.
Okay, I'll hop out for now.
Sorry, I know you're not here, but Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. And I know we have some people here to answer questions, but if I have the historical context correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, some of my colleagues, we used to give $260,000 to the Environment Committee of Council. It was an SPC of Council. We had $260,000. We took that committee, we eliminated that committee. We thought that we could take instead of spending 260, we'd spend $70,000 with a nonprofit group, an organization in the community, which in this number here is not increased, it's the same still money. They have a volunteer board, they do everything, they organize a reuse rendezvous, they do all the environmental initiatives outside the city of Lethbridge, where if we had to do this in-house, there would have been a huge increase, hiring staff, hiring to do all that stuff. And so there was a lot of savings. When I'm hearing the movers resolution, that's a separate issue, a separate thing that could be brought forward. And I think it's a brilliant idea because but I think it might not fit within the mandate of Environment Lethbridge. So I'm going to direct my question to the city manager, and I know there's representatives here to answer that, but was my synopsis or was I paraphrasing everything properly there in historical knowledge, context?
Yes, thanks, Councillor Parker. You are correct. That was the previous approach. We have a committee of council, environment committee, and that committee was dissolved a few years ago. And then Environment Lethbridge has been providing this fee for service for the city and doing the work, doing the activities that you mentioned, not only the reuse rendezvous, but they have different programs that they work with the community and volunteers. And I believe Mrs. Kathleen Shepard is online too, and she will be able to answer.
If I can, before Ms. Shepard comes here, and they also make recommendations to the corporation on programs as well. And Ms. Shepard, if you could help me with that as well. Thank you. Just joking. Go ahead.
We are involved that work.
There's a bit of a delay, so you might.
Yeah, we are involved. Okay, sorry. We are involved in providing feedback to various policy initiatives through the city, whether it's the municipal development plan or other planning initiatives.
Thank you, and thank you for the.
Did that come through all right?
Yeah, that came all right, and thanks for putting the context behind it of why we have this program in place. And this, we've only done it for 4 years, and this will be going into our second budget cycle, am I correct?
This program, my understanding is that this will be the second formal ask for this, but again, Mrs. Kathleen can confirm that, but if I recall correctly, this will be the second time that we will be funding this through this program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next in the queue is Councillor Dodick.
Yes, thank you. Because the information that we have received from the mayor, the mover, is basically anecdotal information that we have not had an opportunity to vet or ask questions of, would it not be, or would you not consider allowing the resolution to stand as initially proposed? And then that gives the university, the folks you've been talking to, that 4-year period of time to actually advise the council or the appropriate SPC how they could maybe improve the program or provide more bang for the dollar. And the reason for that is I'm concerned that it is over the wall, but it's over the wall without any information. So have you considered that as a possibility?
I don't find it as over the wall as if it was over the wall, I would probably have a zeros all the way through and have direct administration to have those conversations with the university and as well with Environment Lethbridge. That's why the funding is there for 2023 so that this is continuing forward while this work is being done in the background. We're not going to lose anything. It's not going to change anything. And this would continue until a report comes back and could continue just the way that it is, as I mentioned before.
Don't you see the difficulty I have is this is a fee-for-service group that has presented before council, they've come to council and have made the request. I'm concerned, and I wonder if you maybe don't have the same concern that it's sort of sending a message to them that's saying, well, you know, we think you're important, but we want you to talk to other people to see that we don't know what those other people are actually going to provide to us.
And this, I think, is a great collaborative work that could be done with Environment Lethbridge and university, you know, through those conversations. This isn't new throughout this week. We've done a lot of these changes, very, very similar to what we've got here. And so I don't find it as being any different than some of the previously presented resolutions.
My final question is, the 1 year seems like a very short time frame. Would you consider at least funding 23 and 24.
I guess I could direct that to city administration. Would a year be able to have enough information to come back to city council? I guess that would be if my understanding. I'll say that with the university, they feel they can do this quickly, but I've got to see with administration.
So again, answering that question, it will be a tight timeline. I'm not going to lie. The amount of work and all the programs that are being delivered by Environment Lethbridge right now are based on the volunteer base, and we will need to review the implication of each one of those. With the university as well, is a matter of manpower that we will need to make sure they have that plan in place. As students come and go, they might not have all the same people, so we will need to map this out. So again, going back to a year or 2 years will be ideal.
And I'm okay with that. I would take that. Did you want to have that as a friendly? Because I would accept that as a friendly for the first 2 years, the 42 and 28.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you. Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. So to the mover, then just so I'm clear on what we're looking at here. With this, do you see roles for both organizations to be working together? So this would be a partnership between the University of Lethbridge and Environment Lethbridge? Like they would be both working together, or are we picking one over the other? Or help me understand where we're going with this.
This is the conversation that'll be had over the next, well, up to 2 years, I see. So, yeah, that I couldn't say. I just, again, in the conversation, and it was, again, a very quick conversation that was had with 2 professors from the university, and one stating that they believe that they could get a better return on the investment that the city is putting in. So I want to be able to explore that. And that partnership with the university, I think, is extremely important. We do have an institution there that I think is second to none throughout the country, and so I think it's important to be able to collaborate with them.
Okay. So initially, though, both organizations would be involved in looking at this, like talking together at least, or?
This is the conversations, again, over the next 2 years we could.
Okay, yeah, no, thank you for that.
The funding is still, as was stated, in 2023 and with the friendly in 2024, so it's not removing any funding from this organization.
Okay, so then I guess now that we see the update on there for 23 and 24, what happens with 25 and 26? Where would the funding come for those 2 years once we've had the examination done, where we're deciding to move forward? How would we fund that afterwards?
From MRSR until it brings into the next budget.
Perhaps it'd be appropriate for the city treasurer to jump in and advise us where it might be coming from.
See where it's coming from. I guess he can confirm it, but I think that's council's decision.
Vice Chair, through Mr. Vice Chair, through to the Economic and Policy Committee. One thing we maybe want to take a look at here is just on this one. If you were going to do it in the fashion we're looking at, you most likely would want to change it to MRSR one time for 23 and 24. The only problem will be, and if I can refer you to the screen behind you right here, you'll see right now, maybe I'll just walk through a bit of a summary on the one-time funding. We, based on the allocations of the 4.46 million and some of the other allocations we've set aside on conditional, we only have $124,000 remaining of that amount. So if we put this in here, we'd be short about $16,000 for 23-24 from that point. So it'd be a little bit, I guess, if SBC would like to recommend that, it'd be a little bit different than what council's done in the past, where it would be more than what the 50% would be of the surplus. The other thing that SBC could consider is that you keep it as utility charges taxation, but you'd keep the 25 and 26 ongoing. So the funding's there. We would be collecting that. It's a small amount of, a smaller amount of money, not necessarily ideal if that changed where we didn't require it.
but you would have those funds there. Otherwise, doing it, we wouldn't typically have first 2 years coming from an ongoing funding source, i.e. taxation, and not having them go all the way through. So there's two options. One would be to use MRSR for the first 2 years, and that would just be that we'd be slightly over our amount on it, or to have it ongoing, being conditional on that as well.
A question I would have then to Mr. Matthews then, if the utility charges, because I see that a larger percentage of the initiative comes from utility charges and less from taxation, would it, in your opinion, be better to go to put that funding in 23 to 26, conditional as was mentioned before for 25 and 26, so do 23, 24, run these numbers all the way across as we currently have utility charges and taxation for the 4 years, and have a decision back where a decision of council comes after the 2024? Would that be better as far as financially?
That would work more easier in our just normal practice. So I think if you did that and just make it so it's conditional, they wasn't allocated to the group for 25, 26 before this report.
Okay, and so that decision would come back to continue on after the report for 25, 26, but the funding would be there in place.
That's right.
And I'm okay to do that, and I guess since I'm the mover, I would hope, unless there's any objection to that, to put those numbers all the way across the way that they were previously with that.
And I only suggest that because I can't imagine that we wouldn't fund something coming up. No matter how things got worked out, we're still going to be funding something, right?
Absolutely.
So that's where I would go with that. I have one last question, and this is to Ms. Shepherd. Yep.
Councillor Crowson.
So we have two other members in the queue. Councillor Crowson.
Thank you. Ms. Shepherd, I do have a couple of questions for you, but I think my first will actually be to the city manager or designate. Can we confirm that we have a contract right now with Environment Lethbridge?
Yes, they are being funded from the city through a fee-for-service program currently.
And have they met all of their obligations of that past contract?
Yes, they have.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Shepherd, would you see any problem if we did fund your organization of reaching out and working with the University of Lethbridge?
We don't have any problem collaborating with the university. We collaborate with different departments there on an ongoing basis. I think the thing I would say is the city, I guess, needs to think about what sort of program delivery that it wants. The university does a lot of good research and those kind of programs. They aren't as engaged in terms of on-the-ground community engagement and outreach of sustainability programs, or haven't been to date. So that's really the decision that the city has to make in terms of what sort of delivery you want to see in the future.
Following up on that, you are a membership-based organization. So we're talking about grants here, but you also have a membership component. What is the value to the city as a corporation and to the city as a community for having a membership-based environmental group?
I think there's a few different values, I guess. I think one of the main ones is that we really try to represent a broad section of the community when it comes to the programs we undertake, and also with our collaborations and the feedback we provide to the city. It's not just on behalf of Environment Lethbridge as an organization, it's on behalf of those other organizations and community members who are our members. So we really try to be as broad as possible. I think from a community perspective, there's also a real benefit in terms of having Environment Lethbridge as an organization in the community that is available to help with concerns, to bring things forward, and to be available at the grassroots. We can be sometimes more nimble than the city and larger institution can be in terms of providing information or delivering different programs in an effective manner.
And just back to the financial question, are you bringing in 3-to-1, 4-to-1 return on investment for the money the city's providing?
I mean, it varies year to year depending on our funding sources. Our average from 2018 to 2021 was just between $2.50 and $3 of leveraging per year, or for the total time period.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Shepherd. Thank you very much to the movers and Mayor Higgin.
Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, and forgive me, but I see the mover has amended their own, and this won't cause me any concern because this looks like a two-prong approach that I really appreciate. This looks to me, and forgive me if I'm wrong, that we are moving forward with our agreement and fee-for-service with Environment Lethbridge, but then further a directional, the direct administration to work with the U of L to explore the strategic partnership, which I really like, because more partnerships and more dollars perhaps flowing is excellent. But I'm wondering if the mover would accept or maybe explore with me. It says direct administration. I was wondering if you add direct administration and Environment Lethbridge, because I think the three working in tandem to try and explore this new partnership would be advisable.
I do see that, and that is all right to add, but I wanted to find out from our administration, is the way that I read it here, there's no contingent for 25, 26. It just has them, they're going to be chatting, and I want to make sure that there's direction to have council make a decision prior to 2025 for those last 2 years. And so do you get that from this resolution? I don't believe it's actually stated in that resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I would agree that you might want to change the resolution to say condition, similar to what we've done in the past, some of the other ones, funding for 25 and 26 is conditional on a
reporting
report.
Back.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if you want to set a date for the reporting back.
And for a date, can I ask what a date for yourselves? I guess I'd look at Mr. Sanchez.
We'll say probably by the end of 2024, which is the second year that we mentioned before.
When, prior to
December,
that, in case
December
there's any
31st.
debate?
It could be prior to that, but that will be the latest that we will come back with this.
For the latest of December 2024? And to work with both organizations, we did get the change. I think that Councillor Carlson, or was it Councillor Carlson? Councillor Dodick? Councillor Carlson, sorry.
It's there, and
Right.
Done? Any more questions? One last question to Mr. Matthews. Don't go anywhere. We had discussions, Mr. Matthews, in regards to the first 2 years being used or being paid for through the MRSR one-time initiatives. Has that now changed again?
Back to Vice Chair Milton Hope. In this case, yes, it would be back to the original intent in this way here, and I think that would be more appropriate at this time, just because if you want to keep this as an ongoing program, regardless of the decision that's come back to the report, this would be this fashion. And as I mentioned before, would be over that for the first 2 years if we used MRSR.
Good, thank you. Any further questions? All right. Debate, mover.
Wait to close. And I don't see anyone else. Oh.
Are we in
Carlson?
debate?
We're in debate.
We're in debate?
Yes, we are.
Oh, thank you. This one causes me a bit of concern, but the way that it's been amended, I think I can probably live with it. Well, I'm hoping my colleagues will debate and discuss this, and only because, and no offense, I was going to ask more questions about to say who who was reaching out from the university? Is there agreement in place? Was it someone from finance or just a passing conversation in a hall? You give me 280,000, I'll give you $1 million. I get those kind of comments all the time in the community that you gave $6 million for this, and well, I could have done it for $1. But I guess we've got some time to explore that. My concern, I think Ms. Shepherd raised it as well, is that there's two different streams. Environment Lethbridge, which we have a fee-for-service with, has been doing yeoman's work in community. Things like the reuse rendezvous is that when I put forward the spring cleanup, that was brought up as we don't need that because we've got Environment Lethbridge that does that program, and we've got this program that they manage, and it's a volunteer base. My experience with the university is it's research based. It's not a group of volunteers out in the community on the ground doing events and doing the community-based work. So if we can get some good research for free out of the university, I'm all for it. But the way this is, we've got the funding in place, we've got at least a 2-year agreement, we've got 2 years to move forward. I can probably live with this, but I would like to hear my colleagues' comments.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Crowson.
Like Councillor Carlson, I would prefer the original motion. I might be able to live with this. I can understand completely where the University of Lethbridge is from with all their budget cuts. They're looking to scrabble for every penny they can to maintain theirs, but that may not be what the city of Lethbridge actually needs from an environmental group. We are looking for a group that does things on the ground, that works with our community, works with our departments, and in the long run is saving the city a great deal of money by doing their work. So again, like Councillor Carlson, I'm waiting to sort of hear where my colleagues are. I would much prefer the original one and keep this group doing the amazing work that they are doing in our community for a fraction of what it would cost the city of Lethbridge.
Thank you. Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. I will support this motion as amended. I always see value in exploring new opportunities. This gives us the time, keeps the funding in place, and it allows us an opportunity to explore some other initiatives. We still have the funding in place, and if it turns out that we're not interested in what's being offered from the University of Lethbridge, we can continue on with how things are already going. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I actually like the original one a lot better as well, and I think this could be a separate directional resolution that could be sent as well. I don't like tying these two together because I know the work that Environment Lethbridge does. I know how much they leverage funds and volunteers and staff hours and all that, and it saves the corporation of Lethbridge a lot of money. So I would have preferred to have seen it as two separate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. I do share some of the concerns that Councillor Carlson and Crowson and Parker gave, but I am willing to give this a shot to see if we can come up with a great collaboration and find out some more with the university. And with the collaboration, I think we can make it work. I do hope that the Environment Committee does stay high profile to make sure that they do continue to do the work that they've been doing. So, but I can live with what's there.
Thank you. I too can live with what's there. I like the collaboration between the university, Environment Lethbridge, and our administration, and I think it develops synergies. And let's hope that they work through this and they're able to come up with a model that we can certainly move forward with. With that, any further debate? Then close debate. Mover.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the conversation, and it's definitely something that's going to be looked at for the next couple of years. But when we have the opportunity to work more collaboratively with our university, a world-class institution, I think this is something that we should definitely explore. It is not changing. We see the funding is still there. It's just going to, if we can have what we've got that is great and make it even better, that's fantastic. So I think I look forward to exploring this further, and I thank everyone for their debate.
Thank you. Now read it and we're done. Okay. All said and done. Call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? No, Madam Clerk, 9-1, 9-0.
Do you want this one? Down here? Do this one? Okay. All right. I do have, we finished those that are in our initiative binder, but I do have a resolution from Councillor Carlson and Deputy Mayor Parker, and this is C13.
Can I make a suggestion to the chair? Because
This was just handed out today.
this for two things, for two reasons. First of all, we're not going to complete a budget today, and we're not going to make a recommendation to council from finance, for the reason being we have presentations on the 21st of December on a few resolutions that we got sent, didn't we?
I believe we are going to make a recommendation to council about a budget after, the hope is, and those will be amendments or,
Yeah, so
maybe I'm,
maybe I'll just chime in there and on it. So what's scheduled right now, members of Economic SPC, is that after today's recommendation from SPC, it would move forward, it was scheduled to move forward to November 29th for council at that time to make a decision on the budget or approve the budget.
The reason why is these sheets are just provided to my colleagues in regards to, Madam City Clerk, does everyone have this in regards to honorariums for public? So
I think we should maybe take a quick break so everyone can look at it and see if we are moving forward with it.
And maybe email it to me?
Sorry, Councillor. So, Mr. Mayor, do you mind taking a quick 5 minute to?
We will take a quick, and I'm sorry, Councillor Croson, did you have something to say prior, or I see that you're in, or is that okay?
No.
Okay.
It's just over-the-wall stuff would be nice if we all had.
All right, we'll just take a few minutes here and return in about 10 minutes.
Let's go.
All right, we will continue on here with this last resolution that I have in front of me, sponsored by Councillor Carlson and Deputy Mayor Parker. It is honorariums for public members that serve on council's boards, committees, and commissions, C13. Be it resolved that the Economic Standing Policy Committee recommend that City Council amend the 2023 to 2026 operating budget to include Initiative C13, honorariums for boards, committees, and commissions, to provide for honorariums for designated boards, committees, and commissions to which council appoints public members, with administration directed to develop a council policy with criteria by December 13th, 2022, with funding allocated as follows. From taxation, from 2023 to 2026, $42,000 a year. And open it up. Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mayor Hagan, and thank you, my colleagues, for entertaining this late in the day amendment. I did try and give you a heads up earlier in the week that I was considering bringing something forward, because there was, when we were talking about our fee-for-service groups and the amount of work they do on behalf of council, the corporation, and the community, and the way they do it for, I don't want to say a pittance, because I think we've tried to address that, but they do it at a very great cost savings. It reminded me that we have a very wide swath of volunteers that also do yeoman service for our community. Yesterday we had members of the Police Commission here in front of us, and that's one of the groups that really, in my mind, and Councillor Parker can also, Deputy Mayor Parker can also speak to discussions that he may have had with groups, is the amount of work that we ask our boards, committees, and commissions to do on our behalf. I did some quick number crunching in my head, the voodoo economics, with the amount of members that we have just on Police Commission, and the amount of hours that I know go into the reading of materials, the preparation for meetings, then the actual meetings themselves, then the subcommittee work, and then the called in front of council to present and discuss. I did some quick math, and just based on Police Commission alone, the volunteer hours that are collected there would be equal to one full-time equivalent person, and that's for one committee and commission. And we've got many of those boards, committees, and commissions, and we always struggle to try and find quality and qualified and really dedicated folks in our community to come out to those. That was one of the reasons. Another reason is that I looked at our, when council was signing up for our organizational meeting, the times and the hours and the different committees that are out there that we sign up for and members of our community do, and they're all over the map. I don't know how somebody who's working full-time can step forward and say, yeah, I'll sit on this committee that meets from 2 until 4 in the afternoon, but then I'll have to take 2 hours off of work. Other folks may have to get childcare. Other folks may have transportation needs. So a way to sort of thank those folks, it's, I hate to say a pittance again, it's not a huge dollars. No one's obviously going to get wealthy on this. This would be, the dollars in front of us would be spread out over, I can't remember exactly how many members we have on BCCs off the top of my head. 106. So obviously this is just a small thank you, a token of our appreciation, and perhaps cover some of the costs if it is childcare, if it is having to take time off work, is having to get transportation. So that's the preamble. I will just finally state that this is just to put the dollars aside and direct administration to actually build a policy and bring it back to council that we can look at it and that we can take out to the community. So I'm just saying this is to put the dollars aside and for council's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have questions. Councillor Crowson.
Thank you. To the movers, I know there is no policy yet developed, so we are looking at something theoretical here, but I would assume you are not thinking that council members who sit on BCCs would get honorariums. This would be solely and fundamentally for volunteers from our community.
That's correct.
And if I can just add to that, Councillor, thank you, Deputy Mayor. 100% council is not included in this. And we have many organizational representatives who are appointed by their organizations. If they're paid by their organization to be there, they also would not be there. So there is no double dipping being considered here.
And so you would be asking for administration to come back with a policy. You're looking for it by December 13th. That's pretty quick for a policy. Are you looking for it to go back to economic SBC, to governance? If you're looking for the policy, where are we directing it to in your mind?
That's a good suggestion, and it might be better off to maybe recommend this to go to governance and to come back. And I'd rather do this properly than do it rushed. And if need be, if it comes back as a recommendation to be implemented in March, so be it, because right now nothing's being given out, period, so anything would be a bonus moving forward. I don't want to have a hard line of this January 1st, is this the time it's going to be implemented? I'd rather, and coming back from your expertise, Councillor Crowson, would you recommend the governance committee to have the recommendation to council?
We do have governance is the one that oversees BCCs and policies. So in my mind, it is the one that makes the most sense for having this conversation. By sending it to a BCC, and it might be on the January agenda, which would give administration a bit more time. It then also, of course, allows the public to come in and have that conversation and to express, concerns or ask questions about it, and do that as well. So it does allow that community conversation to happen. And for people to understand how much work some of the volunteers do as well. So I would suggest that if you were asking my input on for where I think it should go.
And I would agree with you on that. And of course, I can't speak on behalf of Councillor Carlson, but you could make it effective Q1 and make it retroactive to the start of the year, so when approved. So, do you agree, Councillor Carlson? Thank you. And he is nodding his head up and down.
That's how we normally nod.
So why don't we, so you're making that as a friendly amendment? Would that be fair to say, Councillor Crowson?
Yes, we can do it as that.
Thank you.
All right.
Because there's nothing our admin wants more than spending December on policy development.
Councillor Mildenhaupt.
Thank you. And to start, I fully support this. I think the compensation for members who sit on boards, committees, and commissions will enhance retention as well as attracting people. And I think that's also an adjunct of this initiative. So I certainly support that. I wonder if we could just have a very brief indication as to how we arrived at the $42,000. I recognize that there is an articulation in here of what we pay for boards, committees, and commissions, but members of the public sitting at home and or in the gallery, look at them, at the end of the day probably have no idea how we arrived at this. So I wonder if we could just provide some of those insights.
That dynamite.
So what we did is we looked at some other communities and what they do in regards to pay structure and all that, and it just gave some context. At the same time, it's up to governance to actually probably do some due diligence on that and look at what is fair and feasible. Like, I don't want to just throw a number out there, but by looking at what other communities of similar size have done, this is kind of a number we've looked at, and this number could change, but this is at the high end. So.
And thank you for that, Deputy Mayor, and the information sheet that was provided, it was provided for council's information. I'd rather that not be disseminated because I haven't verified those numbers. So it was based on a loose knowledge of what we currently give for honorariums. There are some committees that do get honorariums. Assessment Review Board, I believe, is. Yes.
So we've used a template based on our experience as well as the experience of other communities. All right. I'm fine with that. I don't need to know the specifics at this particular juncture. I'm sure as part of the policy that is developed by administration, we'll have a clearer insight into what those costs are and what the allocation might be for each one of the committees.
100%. That's the intent. It's also, I think, incumbent on us to reach out to some other communities and say, how do you do this? How do you manage it? Because we have such a wide range of BCCs. Some meet for an hour once a month over lunch. Others meet for...
Like the police commission for more than 10 hours a month. Yeah.
Exactly. So
one last question, and this probably would be directed through the city manager to Mr. Matthews. There will be payroll costs that will be associated with this. Is this an initiative that can be absorbed by the corporation, or do we need additional funding, or is the funding contained in the 42,000? If we've got, I think, Madam Clerk, you indicated there were 106 people who may be eligible for some form of honorarium. That's a lot of transfers.
So Mr. Vice Chair, and maybe I'll take a couple thoughts on this one here. So from the point of view, I think what you're referring to is the administration component of doing this. I will also get Mr. Elliott to chime in here if on it, but I would think that there will be some increase in workload, obviously in payroll to key the honorariums and track it, but it would probably be nominal enough that we could cover that.
We're satisfied with that?
Yeah.
We can cover it?
We can cover it.
Okay, good, thank you.
I do have a question to one or each of the movers here. I like the comment that was made by Vice Chair Middleton Hope about the attraction of community members, which I think is important. I guess a concern, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but one of the concerns that I would have is there are many organizations out there that do not pay honorariums, other community groups, so not committees of council, boards, commissions, or committees. And would this entice and pull them away from some committee work that they're currently doing elsewhere as to volunteer within the community? That's just one thing I'm thinking, because I know a lot of them can't afford to obviously pay their volunteers. And so I know one in particular I sit on, it's many hours similar to that of the police commission. It's a separate organization, obviously does not do honorariums. Will that pull those individuals from those groups? It's a concern that I think I would have.
I can't see it happening because we already have 106 members, so it's not like we're going out and recruiting another 2,000 members. So I don't think it'd be any extra draw from our community boards. I as well sit on community boards, and I do it if I'm really passionate and love the organization rather than for the good of the corporation.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate that. Next, I have Councillor Crowson.
Thank you. There's nothing like good policy making in the morning. This would be to the city manager or designate. We're talking about this. We're thinking about moving ahead. I just want to confirm, is there any legal reason that we can't pay honorariums? I know other communities do. Just to confirm that we're not going down a rabbit hole we shouldn't be going. Or would there be anything from a legal standpoint, et cetera, that would stop us from doing this?
Through the mayor, I'm not aware of any legal reason, Councillor Crowson.
Okay. And a friendly amendment that I would like to suggest to the movers. It would be part of my debate later, but I've always thought it is a shame in our country that if you have extra funding, extra money, you give a financial donation, you get a tax receipt. But if you give your blood, sweat, and tears and actually donate thousands of hours every year, you get no tax receipt. Would you consider adding to this that we should also advocate that volunteer hours become suitable to the proper orders of government, that we look at getting tax receipt for volunteer hours as part of how Canadians do things?
Councillor Crowson, what a brilliant idea. I volunteer for various organizations, and for years we track our volunteer hours because we wanted to show, okay, I gave the 4 hours this week and that was $100 worth of, and then the government stopped giving any credit at all for that, and even funding allowances. I love the idea. I think it's, I don't know that we need to tie it to this. I'd love to see that come up at as a official business motion in council, and you would definitely have my huge support on that, because I think that is something that I mean, it makes sense. I volunteer for one organization, and there are 32 volunteers a day donating between 2 and 4 hours a day each. And if they could get some sort of credit for that, that would be amazing. So I don't know that it's necessary here, but if it helps here, I'd rather see it at a council meeting. I'm not sure that budget is the way to deal with that, but I love it.
No, I appreciate that. It's just, again, we have to find extra money, and the federal and provincial governments could make this a lot easier if they would just do tax receipts.
Thank you, Councillor Crowson. I see no further questions, so I think to open debate. Open, I guess, to secondary open. I see no debate in here, so I guess to close.
Well, Councillor Carlson did open, and there were some questions, but I would allow any of my colleagues to have debate before I close.
No one's in line, so you can close debate.
Thank you very much. And I don't think anyone goes on any of our boards or commissions to generate revenue. I don't never heard that in the years that I've been on council. But at the same time, we are having troubles finding volunteers, and we're not doing this to create more recruitment, but rather out of respect to the people that have done the work and continue to do the work. I know for some committees, they have to travel distances. They have to, I'll use one example, the combative sports. They actually have to go to these events, not because they love watching a fight, but they actually have to help manage the fight. They have to help with the weigh-ins. I think medical, or go over medical blood testing and all that kind of stuff. These are volunteers, and they're sacrificing their time. And just if we can do a small token, I don't know what the exact number is going to look like, but at least we have an amount allocated. And as we go through our policy and create a policy through governance, which is the appropriate, and I thank Councillor Crowson for that, then we can come back and make the recommendation to councillors through committee, and then from there we at least have money put aside, and then you'll have a better opportunity to find out what exactly it looks like. So I'd call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll take this opportunity here and to, again, once thank administration, thank council for this week of a lot of debate, discussion, questions, concerns, comments, suggestions. I think it went very well. I just want, prior to reading a final resolution to recommend, I just wanted to ask if there's any members of council that do have any questions or any comments going forward. Councillor Parker?
City manager as well as Mr. Matthews to kind of do a synopsis of where we are at, what we're doing and going forward, and then if we have any questions from there. And then it allows our media to understand what's going on as well as the hundreds of viewers.
Thank you. I was going to do exactly that after we had the questions, but that's good. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, through to Economic SPC Committee. So on the screen right now, what we're looking at is the total average annual change in municipal property tax is at 5.1%. The average annual change in a single-family property residence is 129.93 on that, and you can see all the different, down below it here is all the individual initiatives that were approved to the at this stage here to the budget, base budget. So that's all inside there. Now if we go over to the one-time sheet, starting off at the beginning of the week, there was 4.4 million, 4,460,000 is probably a better way of saying it, of one-time funding, and the various initiatives have brought that total to 4,335,000 and of amount, leaving a remaining amount of 124,000.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that synopsis. It's great to be able to see running total as we made our way through budget week. So
Can I have a follow-up question to that then?
Absolutely.
And thank you, Mr. Matthews. And my other question is, now obviously this isn't set in stone, for lack of a better term here. So if council over the next week or two sees maybe a resolution come forward, a directional or a budget initiative or a budget reduction, do they still have opportunity after this meeting is closed to still bring that forward prior to the 29th?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Parker, yes, as it comes forward to council, if that was to occur, I mean, council could make that decision at the time when it comes to a council meeting on November 29th, which is scheduled for.
And my second question is, obviously, and this is my last question for right now.
Actually, your third question.
All right. No, my first question was, can I ask the city manager to clarify? But to start though. But so obviously when we pass a budget, the media gets the word out there, which are media partners. And so we want an opportunity for people to give us feedback. Hey, did we do the right thing? Did we miss something? Or is there going to be an opportunity for that? Or do we just kind of stand by our phones or wait for our emails? Is there going to be some kind of, I know press release, but any open houses, or not to say open houses because we never know, but what happens after exactly in regards to feedback?
Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Parker, my understanding would be that obviously if council got obviously going to council meeting, I'll leave that maybe to the city clerk in regards to what would come forward on that. There isn't another SPC component scheduled in between the time on that, so it would go directly to council, and I think there's different rules in how that would be for an open house engagement from that point of view.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Carlson.
Mayor, I was only asking, I'm not sure the process today, is this just for final questions, or are we going to have a resolution and then we'll do a debate on it?
There will be a resolution that will come forward. Just want to know if there's any further questions around the process before we do the resolution for the operating budget. Councillor Dodick.
Thank you. This is directed to the city treasurer. Just confirm again, when we started this process on Monday, 3.77% of the, what we're looking up there, of the 5.1% was the base budget, which was to deal with maintaining existing levels of services. So that's the number we started at on a go-forward basis that would give our citizens the level of service that they have been experiencing. Is that basically it?
That is correct.
Okay, when I look at the new initiatives, I see 1.33% has been added to the 3.77 base budget. And it's fair to say that more than half of that was that new initiative was with respect to protective services, the police, and we've heard loud and clear that that's what our citizens wanted. So that's fair to say as well, isn't it?
Mr. Chair, to Councillor Dodick, I would think that would be accurate.
Thank you. I just wanted to show where we started, where we ended, and how we got there. Thank you.
I can appreciate that because we started off with many of the resolutions. If all pass, it was above that 6 point, and I can't remember what. Do you remember what that was? If everything was to be approved, it was 6.
Mr. Chair, I believe it would be just over 6. It would be 6.06 if I remember.
6.06. So through deliberation this week here, we were able to bring this down to a 5.1. I think it was. Is that what?
That is correct.
5.1. So thank you very much for that. If I see no further questions, I will move forward with the resolution.
Those are all the amendments.
Here.
I don't know if you want to read them all. Those are all the initiatives they passed.
Okay. The initiatives that are passed are up on the screen, so rather than read each and every one, I would hope that my colleagues would support me reading this one. All right. With that, for 2023 to 2026 operating budget as amended, be it resolved that the Economic Standing Policy Committee recommends City Council approve the 2023 to 2026 operating budget as amended, and I will take that sponsor as being my Vice Chair, Middleton Hope. If there's any questions, I do see Councillor Carlson does have a question. No questions?
Any
All in
debate?
for debate?
All for debate then.
Okay, open debate. All right, we'll start
On
off
the
with
board.
Deputy Mayor Parker.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I want to thank all the staff in each and every one of the departments throughout the corporation for all the work that they have done over the last year, if not longer, to get us to this point. And the final point is actually when it comes to council for a final ratification. This is a recommendation coming from SPC. As most people know, everyone has wants and needs, and it's such a cliche, but this is an opportunity for us over the last week and months leading this to find out what is important in our community. And at the end of the day, there are winners and there are losers, and we've noticed that through our debate over the last week or so. Now, the community will look at the number of 5.10, but as stated earlier from Councillor Dodick, just to have and maintain the original service coming into this budget, it was going to cost 3.77%. And when you think about it, that's pretty good in these inflationary times. And as most people know, fuel has gone up, labor has gone up, cost of all goods have gone up. So 3.77 is really good. And so we have to remind ourselves, our administration scrutinized each and every one of these departments and asking them what they really need. And at the end of the day, 3.77 was the number. Each one of these departments probably had a lot more requests, but I do believe that the senior leadership team did their due diligence and thinning it out to finding out what they feel was appropriate being presented to council. And at the end of the day, we as council had to make the final decision. And that's where we are today. The biggest thing people wanted, and we've heard loud and clear over the last 3 or 4 years, if not before that, is public safety. And we put that as pretty much our number one priority in this budget, as stated earlier, in that the 1.33% increase above and beyond the 3.77 was based around public safety. And I think no one in this community would begrudge that at all. Now, if we would have came with a budget to reduce and maybe cut taxes a little bit, those people out there would say, why couldn't you cut even more? But as most members of council and past council know, when we did do the reductions in when we did open the budget, there was consequences. Example, parks, ambulance, not ambulance, but rather police. And we heard it loud and clear that those weren't the right decisions. And I'm speaking on behalf of myself here, not on behalf of my colleagues here. So this budget reflects what we've heard not only this year, but the years leading into this budget. Now, we use the number up there. It's going to be $110 or $129 per year. And when you break it down, it's roughly around $10 a month for those extra services which people in this community don't not only want, but we need. Now, there are projects in here that I did not support. I did not support the Japanese Gardens project. I didn't support some of the other projects, but I also respect the majority of my colleagues. And even though I did not support it, I support the majority when making it. It's easy for me to vote against this budget because I didn't get everything I wanted, and I think there was some overspending, but my job is to represent myself and be respectful to my colleagues. And we did that through debate. We had votes that were 5-4. We had some that were unanimous. But at the end of the day, that's democracy. And when we support this budget, it's up to us to defend it and explain it to the community. Not everyone's going to be happy. They're going to look at a certain number of, wow, my taxes have gone up. Well, as most people know, there's inflation is a major role in this community right now. And to come with 3.77, I thought our administration did a really good job. I'm known to be as more of the fiscal hawk, but at the end of the day, people expect a level of service in this community. And the reason why is because council has listened to the needs and wants of this community. And this, at the end of the day, is a collaboration of all the decisions that past councils have made as well. So for that reason, I support the process. I'm glad it was so transparent. I'm looking forward to hearing from my constituents over the next week or so leading into the council budget when we finally ratify the budget. But for those reasons, I want to say thank you to my colleagues for their respect. It's been a long week. I want to thank our administration. I want to thank our fee-for-service groups. I want to thank all the people that came and answered our questions. And I also want to thank our media partners for getting our story out there as well. So for that reason, I'll be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson.
Thank you. Mayor Higgin. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. You've said much of what I was going to say, so I won't repeat it. I will just say that I will be supporting this. This has been the work of not just this week, but many, many, many months. I do have to quickly highlight my thanks to our administration and to our community that did provide lots of input over the last few months. We had so many meetings, so many online engagements, so many in-person engagements, and I want to let you know that we listened and we brought your values and your wants to the meeting. I've always felt that if you want to see what a council values, you look at their budget because you put your money where your mouth is. And I think this budget is a great reflection of our values, which reflect the community values. Did I get everything I valued into this budget? No. Are there things in this budget that don't reflect my values? Yes. But I expected nothing less from such a diverse council around this table. We all bring different sets of values, and I think that's why we're here, because we have a diverse community and we have a diverse council. And so I expected that. But one thing I would like to say that I don't think was said is that in my time, since 2007, this has been the most collegial budget process that I have ever been through. We did our due diligence, we probed, we debated, we sometimes called each other names on the back stairs. But at the end of the day, I think we all recognize that each one of us is doing the best what they feel is best for our community. We brought that to the table and we respected everyone's opinion and everyone's voice was heard. And so I just want to thank my colleagues, in addition to all the work that was done through administration, for the work they've put into this. I think it was an amazing process. Thank you.
Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. I too will support this. We did some hard and some good work this week. As we stated at the start, and as Councillor Dodick pointed out, we started with 3.77% to maintain current service levels, and from there we added 1.33%. I'd like to remind everyone as well that we've had 3 years of no increase, so much of this was also to catch up with those service levels that we did not see increases for over 3 years. We heard and listened to what is important to our community and focused on those services. Finally, thank you to our administration and staff for getting us here and through this week, to our community for sharing their comments, and also to my colleagues for all the hard work that we have done over this past week. Thank you.
Thank you. I too will be supporting this. I appreciate the comments that were my colleagues brought prior. One thing that I really agree on, and a comment that Councillor Carlson brought up, the collegial aspect to this whole week, because I'll tell you what, not all of us were on the same page. And again, he jokes about the comments and stuff at the bottom of the stairs. That does happen. Why? You support this, why do you do this? But we still together were able to work together through this week with respect. And something I have not been on as long as Councillor Carlson, but I can say in the time that I've been on, this has been the most collegial, and it's very respectful, and I do appreciate that, and I thank my colleagues for that. Looking at this increase, I would like a zero. I mean, who wouldn't want a zero? Who wouldn't want a minus 2%, minus 3%? It's, having 3 years of, not just 3 years of zero, but a previous year of very low as well. It's tough to continue when I know that the last 3 years came with a 10.3% inflation. That's tough. We have many contracts coming through, and we understand that a majority of this budget, a lot of this budget deals with staffing. And you know what? There are different contracts we are obligated to work through with our different contracts that are in place. So yes, it is an increase. We've asked staff members and council, for that matter, too, over the past few years to take a reduction in pay of 10%, as council did, and staff, and through administration, what they have done. Very tough. I look at one of the biggest things that was passed that did make the change to the budget and that would be police. We spoke about police, the importance of police, but that's what we've heard. This is what we've heard in the community of public safety. So having that increase, and as I mentioned, some of the minimal dollar amount of increase on each person's taxation to have that service in our community at that the level of what was presented to us is great. And so with that, and to maintain the service that we have and to move forward, I will be supporting this. And again, I do want to thank our media, thank our administration, and all those, and especially to the community members who have reached out to us to engage during this this process. Councillor Palladino.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was certainly a learning curve for myself. I echo everything everything that's been said here this morning. I'm impressed by the knowledge in this room and online, from council to administration, and I thank you for your patience, being a rookie year for me, and I will support this draft. Thank you.
Thank you. And to close, Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you, Your Worship. In closing, this has been a respectful, collaborative, and collegial process. I think you've heard from each one of my colleagues that this is the process that we've gone through and that we've experienced. It's been a well-informed process, and we have administration and the various groups to thank for that. We have listened, we've learned, and we've led. And as a taxpayer, as all of the members around this table are as well, I'm grateful for the work of all of the groups who have contributed to this success. Thank you to everyone, and we look forward to bringing this forward to Council on November the 29th.
Thank you. And with that, the question has been called. All in favor? Any opposed? That so carries. All right. Meeting adjourned.